Ahead of the winter weather across much of the state today, Nebraska farmers are expressing concerns about the warm, dry winter. I'm Alex Makovica, joining you on the Rural Radio Network with today's agriculture news. Good morning. According to the latest U.S. Drought Monitor, almost 95% of Nebraska is now experiencing some level of dryness, with nearly 15% in moderate to severe drought. Just 3 months ago, less than half the state was affected. For Holdridge farmer and Nebraska soybean board member Blake Johnson, that's already expedited some spring field work. So
last week we were actually strip tilling in February. I don't know that we've ever done that in the past. So hopefully, it's a dry and warm winter, and you look at the drought monitor and you get a little worried about what the future is. We're going to need some help from Mother Nature.
Drought Monitor maps are released every Thursday. The latest one will be released this morning just after 7:30 Central. Well, farmers say they're feeling real pressure, and expanding ethanol blends would boost corn demand. As Steve White reports, that message now heads to the nation's capital.
Senators Pete Ricketts and Congressman Adrian Smith hosted ag and ethanol leaders for a roundtable. They wasted little time arguing for year-round E15, knowing Smith and Ricketts have long supported that. Rather, they focused on strategy to get holdouts on board. Farmer Tracy Zink said ethanol supports communities, something she says is critical given the current financial crisis that has seen the USDA issue billions in relief.
I don't think there's very many who would say, give me a payment. I say, give me fair trade. Give me an opportunity. Give me stability.
Reporting in Hastings, I'm Steve White.
From inside the Nebraska Soybean Board studios, I'm Alex Makovica.
I knew nothing about shipping, especially a perishable product.
That's where Hannah Klitz started. At 20 years old, while still in college, she launched Oak Barn Beef, now based in West Point, Nebraska. Today, that business ships Nebraska-raised beef to all 50 states. From a remodeled auto mechanic shop to a nationwide direct-to-consumer brand.
We've shipped to every state every year since 2021. Wow. So that's been an exciting mark to hit every year.
On the latest episode of the Building Nebraska podcast, Hannah shares how she learned logistics of shipping those perishable products, how she built an e-commerce brand from rural Nebraska, and grew a storefront that now makes up nearly 30% of her business. It's a story about grit, agriculture, and entrepreneurship in the Cornhusker State. You can listen to Building Nebraska wherever you find podcasts and watch online at the Rural Radio Network YouTube channel. Building Nebraska, powered by the Angler Agribusiness Entrepreneurship Program at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln.
Good morning. Welcome back. Agrochemical maker Bayer and attorneys for cancer patients have announced a proposed $7.25 billion settlement to resolve thousands of U.S. lawsuits alleging the company failed to warn that its weed killer Roundup could cause non-Hodgkin lymphoma. The settlement was filed in Missouri state courts. It would create a fund making payments up to potentially 21 years. Individual payouts would vary based on factors like age, exposure, and severity of illness. The deal still requires court approval. That agreement coming as the Supreme Court of the U.S. prepares to hear arguments on whether federal pesticide labeling laws preempt state failure to warn claims. Bayer continues to dispute that Roundup's key ingredient glyphosate causes cancer. Also in the news this morning, low crop prices and high production costs are weighing heavily on U.S. farmers as the spring planting season draws near. It's having farmers make decisions about which crops offer the most favorable returns. A new report from CoBank says U.S. soybean acreage is projected to increase almost 6% this year, with soybeans pulling acres from multiple crops. The expansion of U.S. soy crush capacity and expectations of continued Chinese demand have lifted those prices a little bit to attract levels compared to competing crops. The analysis from CoBank showed soybean acreage will increase 6% over last year, reaching 86 million acres. Total U.S. corn acreage projected to be 94 million. That would be down about 5% from last year. Spring wheat acres expected to drop by 1% to just shy of 10 million acres. For more agriculture news, podcasts, and videos, we invite you to check out ruralradionetwork.com. From inside the Nebraska Soybean Board studios, I'm Alex Makovica reporting on the Rural Radio Network. The state's drought conditions worsened this week, according to new data released this morning from the U.S. Drought Monitor. About 95% of the state is still experiencing some level of dryness, but the bigger concern is the jump in more serious categories. Just shy of 70% of the state is now in moderate or worse drought. That is a 10% jump from just last week. Severe drought more than doubled. For Holdridge farmer and Nebraska Soybean Board member Blake Johnson, that's already expedited some spring field work.
So last week we were actually strip tilling in February. I don't know that we've ever done that in the past. So hopefully, it's a dry and warm winter, and you look at the Drought Monitor and you get a little worried about what the future is. We're going to need some help from Mother Nature.
Nebraska's drought severity and coverage index also rose sharply this week, another signal that conditions are intensifying as Nebraska heads towards spring.